All right, hello. Welcome back to Ultra Kellen Real Estate. As always, thank you to all subscribers, people who've been listening to the videos, people who've been, giving me shout outs, everything like that. To get right into this one, so this one's gonna be a little bit longer of a story. So, I had a peculiar case. I had a tenant. I want to say she moved in, maybe late 2018, early 2019. This is probably like one of the crazier, like longer sagas I've had with a tenant. This whole story. So, so Catholic Charities has a program like Section 8 where they pay for people to move into your units. So I've had a relationship with Catholic Charities for maybe, I don't know, 8, 9 years now, where I've had some of their tenants off and on in my properties. So it's like Section 8, but I think the biggest difference between typically the Catholic Charities tenants and sometimes the Section 8 ones, usually the Catholic Charities tenants are coming from like a rough place. They could be coming from a shelter, domestic abuse, all types of stuff. So versus Section 8, for the most part, at least from my experience, it seems a little bit more stable. So I get this tenant from Catholic Charities, and so she moves in late 2018, early 2019, and single mom, had 2 kids. I want to say the kids, or maybe it was 2 boys. Maybe either they were twins or they were the exact same age. And so she moved in, and then everything was fine. She was a very nice lady. She was a little bit younger than me, maybe like in her late 20s back then, and she kept an immaculate apartment, like immaculate. When you're a landlord or a real estate investor, and you go throughout so many different people's apartments and the way they live, and you can easily tell who is a little bit more on the struggle bus opposed to some other people. And she looked like she was not on the struggle bus. Her apartment was laid out, decorations, matching drapes. She had the little rocks that people put in their bathroom sink. Her son's bedroom was, everything was all nice and everything was neat. So I was like, wow, this is, not that all my tenants are messy, but her apartment was very laid out, very neat. Everything was organized. Matching hand towels, the whole 9 yards. So as the months are going on now, so now we're into 2019. I remember she had a car and she had a job. She had a job with a Petco, or one of those companies, Petco or maybe PetSmart. And so I remember she was super cool. She even gave me her discount card to use to get dog food, or get stuff from the pet store, for my dog. I would get 30% off, so it was great. So early 2019, I was getting super discounts from her. She was a nice lady. And then so one day I started noticing things. Well, I guess the first sign when things started going kind of weird. I want to say maybe April or May of 2019. I went to PetSmart to use the discount card she gave me, and this time it didn't work. And the guy behind the counter was like, "Hey, the person whose card this is, does she still work for the company?" And I was like, "Oh, I gave up some excuse. Oh, it's my cousin. I haven't talked to her in a while. Maybe she did change jobs. She didn't tell me." So first sign, discount card didn't work. I was like, okay, maybe she got a new job. It's not like it's her job to tell me that she got a new job. So it is what it is. So maybe a few weeks later, I started thinking, and I was like, man, I haven't seen Miss So and So. I haven't seen her car in a little while. I was like, usually not that many cars are on my block. It's not a lot of houses on the street that I live on. And so I hadn't seen her car in a little while. But I was like, well, I'm busy. I'm driving Uber and Lyft. I'm doing this, doing that. Coming late. But I was like, all right, well, I haven't seen her car. No big deal. So now the behavior starts getting even more odd. So I have a dog, and I'm walking my dog. So I'm walking my dog down the street one day, and it was hot outside. So now I'm guessing it's a little bit more toward May, June. I come back to the building with my dog. It's maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I have a driveway that leads up to my building. Pretty long driveway actually, and the tenant is sitting in the driveway in a chair. And she's in her pajamas, with a bonnet on her head, just in the daylight, just sitting there. So I walk up to her with my dog. I was like, "Hey, Miss So and So, are you locked out? I can, I can let you back in. Everything okay?" She's like, "Oh no, I'm fine. Don't worry about me." I was like, "Oh, okay. Are you sure? Because you're just kind of sitting here." "Oh no, I'm fine. Don't worry about anything." I was like, "Oh, okay. All right." That was kind of odd. She's just sitting in the driveway in a chair, middle of the day, in her pajamas with a head wrap on. All right, okay. So maybe another day or so later, I'm walking my dog again, and now as I'm coming back to the building, I see a bunch of litter, out of nowhere, in my yard. And I was thinking I didn't notice it when I left the first time, and I see all this litter, and I'm like, okay, what is that? Man, it was tampons. I was like, what the, where all these come from? I was like, are these really tampons in my yard? What in the world? And then so I was busy. I was on my way to go somewhere, so I had to put Fife Dog back up. But I was like, all right, like, it is what it is. Like, who knows what happened? Like, it's other, buildings in a vacant, vacant yard, or a type of field across the street, whatever. Who knows? I'll come back and come clean it up. So I left that night, and I came back later on, and I came back, it was gone all of a sudden. I was like, okay, that was kind of odd. And then so now that same tenant, now I would see her just like kind of doing like more odd things. Like, I would see her just kind of like, walking up and down the street, like, in like middle of the daylight, like, it was just like, her pajamas on, like, head wrap on, flip flops, just kind of just like walking. I was like, all right, like, well, whatever, it's a nice day outside, but I just felt kind of odd how, like, she didn't put clothes on. She's like, doing this like in broad daylight, like in her pajamas pretty much. And then so now the house next to me, there's a gentleman who, like, rents the basement from the couple. And, he'll see me every now and then, he'll wave hi to me and stuff. So now I'm leaving the house one day, and that gentleman sees me. He's like, hey, so-and-so. He's like, come here for a second. And so I walk over to him, like, hey, like, what's up? He was like, yo, like, that lady who lives in that apartment up there, like, what's up with her? And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, can you not see that stuff on her window? And I was like, what stuff? And then so I had to walk around to his side of the building because her unit is up top. And so unless I'm looking up like this, like, I can't really see, especially if I'm coming in late at night. So I walk around his house with him, and there are, I kid you not, there are bloody tampons on her windows. There's bloody tampons taped to her windows. There's like a picture of her on the window, and then there's like a note with like writing on it. And I was like, what in the world? And then I'll start walking around the building, like, further away where that house is so I can see from a better distance. And she has bloody tampons on multiple windows. I was like, what in the world? And then so I started thinking, like, wait a minute, is she the one who put those tampons in the yard like the other day? I'm like, all right, this is getting weird now. And so mind you, like, now at this point, I still haven't seen the tenant now. I haven't seen her for maybe like a week or two now. And I was like, man, like, what's going on? Like, she has bloody tampons, like, with a picture of herself and then like a note written. I was like, all right, this is getting weird. So now we start fast forwarding, like, throughout the summertime. Now, I want to say, like, the last time I can remember seeing her was maybe like August of like 2019. So, I mean, mind you, it's still hot outside. And so the unit that she was in was on top of mine. So, like, I would maybe hear her play music, talk on the phone, whatever. So I started thinking to myself, I was like, man, like, when's the last time I've seen Miss So-and-so? Like, I'm kind of thinking, like, man, I haven't seen her, like, in a while. Like, it's been, like, at least maybe, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks, maybe a month. Now I think about it. And so, but I can hear the AC, so she had her AC unit is in the wall, and I can hear the AC unit running. So I was like, well, clearly, like, somebody's up there. I hear the AC unit running, like, nonstop. Like, somebody must be up there doing something. Like, she must be there. And even, like, more when I think about it, I hadn't even seen her kids, like, either. So now fast forward into, like, September. Now we're going into October, and now it's starting to get cold outside, and I still hadn't seen her. But mind you, she's Catholic Charities, so I get paid all my rent from Catholic Charities for her. Like, she doesn't pay a portion or anything, so I'm still getting my direct deposit, the first of the month. So I'm like, hey, like, whatever, I guess, like, because Catholic Charities has to keep in contact with the tenant, and that, that's their job back and forth. Like, I get paid, I mind my business, so now I start thinking, I'm like, all right, it's starting to get cold outside, and I can still hear her AC unit running, but I haven't seen her. And so I started thinking, like, man, like, is she alive? Is somebody up there? And, like, okay, well, no, she couldn't be dead because, like, my dog, he would smell it, maybe something like that. I'm like, all right, whatever. So now maybe like a week or two later, I get a call from Catholic Charities, and they tell me, okay, Mr. McFarland, your tenant, blah, 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 like, she's leaving the program, XYZ happened. I'm like, okay. And then so I try to ask the people from Catholic Charities what happened, and they can't really give you an explanation for some reason. Like, like, oh, patient or tenant client privileges, that type of thing. But I remember, when the tenant had first moved in, I asked her how she ended up in Catholic Charities. And so she told me that she was a domestic violence survivor and that her, I guess, ex-husband was in jail for beating on her. So I was like, when she first told me that, I'm like, oh my God, like, I'm so sorry to hear that. Like, hopefully Catholic Charities can help. So as I'm on the phone with the employee from Catholic Charities, I said, hey, like, I remember when I first met the tenant, she told me that her ex-husband or something like that was in jail because he was beating on her. And I kid you not, the lady or the employee for Catholic Charities over the phone says, she told you that he was beating on her? And she was like, nah, I think it was the other way around. I was like, oh, she was beating on him. She was like, I'm pretty sure that was the issue. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, all right. So now, she's okay, she's gone. She's, we're not paying for her. So I wait till like Halloween, maybe like November 1st. I'm like, all right, I still hear the AC unit running. Let me just go up there. I go up to her unit. Everything is like perfectly in place. You would have thought she was like at that unit like that morning. Like she still had food that was in like the microwave. It's like she just vanished, like literally. I mean, nobody in her family came by. Nobody called me. Like, I mean, she left a fully furnished apartment behind. I mean, fully furnished, clothes, all her kids' stuff, everything. Everything's still there. And she's vanished. I haven't seen her at this point like in 3 months. So I'm like, all right, like now, well, I'm not getting paid for her. Like, I got to figure out what to do. So, all right, I got to start, like, getting rid of some of her stuff, I guess. Like, maybe I'll save some of it. Like, I'll do something. So now I'm going through her stuff, like, with one of my friends, trying to clean everything. I'm bagging up stuff in black bags, everything. So now I find all types of crazy, like, sex toys and stuff. Like, okay, that's not, that unusual. But we also find signs. And the signs were like signs that like a prostitute will be like holding like on the corner, like, sex for sale, booty for sale, stuff like that. And I was like, yo, like, was she like running Johns up and down? And I just like never noticed this. Like, what was going on? And then so I get curious, and then I finally go to Google and I Googled her name. At first, I couldn't find anything. And then I called my best friend and I had him do it. He found something. So he sends me the link. So apparently, I'm reading the story like back like in May of that year, she got arrested for like trespassing pretty much, or like she had a restriction order against her, like an order of protection, and she got pulled over in like an area where she was too close to the person's house who she was restricted against, and so she got her car impounded according to the story, and I guess got jail maybe overnight on that. And so it clicked in my mind. I was like, bam, I was okay. That's when, around the time, I stopped seeing her car. Maybe her car got impounded, and I remember she told me that her job was far away. So I'm guessing that once she didn't have a car, now she couldn't get to her job anymore, so she lost her job. So that's why that Petco card I had stopped working. I was like, okay, all right. And then so I'm trying to piece things together, everything, and like literally to this day, I have no clue what happened to her. Like, vanished. Like, really out the thin of the air. That's going on 2 years ago now. I mean, like, I had to take her stuff. Like, I'm thinking that somebody from the family is going to call me, something. And, like, nothing ever happened. She literally just vanished, thin of the air. All right, and so, you'll get stories like that, like, when you're in this business long enough. But, like, yeah, that one is one of the more peculiar ones. I mean, like, when I started seeing, the bloody tampons on the windows, that one, that blew me, all right, so I'm gonna have more stories. Like, I feel like when being a landlord, real estate investor, like, all the seminars and stuff like that, like, they don't talk about like the tenant and the the interaction that you'll have with them and how that is. So I really want to start exploring some of those topics too. As always, thank you for the watches or for the views. Subscribe to the channel. Like, if you're on Instagram and you see this, or if you're not on Instagram, like, follow me at Ultra Kellen. That's ULTRAKELLON. And see you guys next time. All right.